think will happen to her now?
Well, I'd like to see her work on a farm where she can relate with all the animals and the pets and the dogs and the cows and the pigs, because she can relate to animals far more than she does with people. I was not able to have any connection with her, make any eye contact. And here's the thing, it's not just me or three of us. There were over 100 employees over the 19 years that walk away with this sickened feeling, about working there. As much as I loved my job as a booker and producer, I was almost relieved when I got fired, because it was like I want to take a shower. It was like a whole new dawn. So I don't feel that she has the trust anymore of the viewers.
The Ellen situation.
Yeah.
People found out that Ellen was mean, and all these people came out and said, Ellen's actually a bitch. And they were like, whoa.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And she lost everything. She fell apart, disappeared, because people found out that this character that she was portraying in a half an hour on a television show is not really who she was. My buddy Greg, who was one of her writers, was like, she's a piece of shit.
How does an empire built on kindness crumble into a $100 million legal war? In Hollywood, betrayal is common, but what happened to Ellen DeGeneres was different. This wasn't a simple backstabbing. This was the systematic dismantling of a global brand, exposed by the very people who were paid to smile and clap along. The woman who told the world to be kind was now being accused of creating a kingdom of cruelty, and her own producers were coming to collect. This isn't just the story of a talk show ending. It's the story of how America's sweetheart became the subject of a ruthless Hollywood roast, with a rumored 9-figure price tag attached.
On camera, she laughed while she badgered her staff. And so all good things must end, and also the Ellen DeGeneres show. Yes, the 83-year-old entertainer just announced that the upcoming 19th season of her show will be its last. Apparently, she created a workplace more toxic than an Amazon warehouse in Chernobyl. Countless allegations surfaced last summer that the show's work environment was rife with harassment and discrimination. Following those charges, Ellen's ratings dropped faster than Kevin Spacey's pants at a boy band pool party. DeGeneres bails for the UK. All right, I'm going to go to you first, Kat, because this is I think you understand this story. So Ellen and her wife, Portia, have left their millionaire haven of Montecito for England. Now, they're saying they'll never come back in the wake of Trump's win. Do you think that's the reason why she's leaving?
Absolutely not.
For nearly 2 decades, Ellen DeGeneres was more than a host. She was a cultural institution. Her show was a daily dose of manufactured joy, a safe space where celebrities could let their guard down and audiences could escape into a world of laughter, giveaways, and spontaneous dancing. She built an empire on a single powerful idea: kindness. The phrase, "be kind to one another," wasn't just a sign-off. It was a brand, a movement, and the foundation of her billion-dollar fortune. She was untouchable, radiating a warmth so powerful that it seemed to light up the entire entertainment industry. But behind the bright lights and forced smiles, a darkness was festering, and in 2020, the curtain was violently torn back.
It's like a beautiful name, Isis.
Ellen's rough. That's
Ellen
a
is
rough
like
one.
an old.
But it's a rough one now.
It's a rough one now because she was running Abu Ghraib in the back of her show. That's a rough one. She's out there dancing with Kristen Bell, and in the back, there's people that are getting up on the rack like this.
It's so weird when you see, like, a lot of people saying that someone who seems so nice is not nice at all.
She doesn't seem nice, but that's people have a very poor judge of character. She doesn't seem nice. It seems forced.
Told the Today Show, home of Matt Lauer, that the bad press actually had nothing to do with her decision. Right, and the Titanic didn't hit an iceberg. It chose to sink.
If it was why I was quitting, I would have not come back this year. I really did think about not coming back because it did, it was devastating. I am a kind person. I am a person who likes to make people happy.
No, the real reason, she says, is it was just too easy. Telling the Hollywood Reporter, quote, when you're a creative person, you constantly need to be challenged. And as great as this show is, and as fun as it is, it's just not a challenge anymore. Well, if that's true, here's an idea. When your viewership is down 43%, why not consider that the challenge?
Have they made progress with this strike?
They're picketing right now, so I think it's the early stages. I would think it might take a little bit with this one.
When someone crosses the writer strike, that's some dirty shit. They cross the picket line.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody doing that yet.
I think Ellen did. I had a buddy of mine who was writing on Ellen. Everybody kind of knows now what she's really all about. And that's another one of those. Like, press. I'm so nice and I'm so sweet. Being behind the scenes.
It started as a whisper, then became a roar. A bombshell report from BuzzFeed News unleashed a torrent of allegations from dozens of former employees. They painted a chilling picture of life behind the scenes, one that stood in stark contrast to the happy-go-lucky world broadcast to millions. They spoke of a toxic work environment fueled by fear, intimidation, and casual cruelty. Staffers claimed they were fired for taking medical leave or attending family funerals. Others detailed experiencing racism and microaggressions from top producers. And then there was the most bizarre rule of all. Employees were allegedly instructed not to speak to Ellen or even make eye contact with her if they saw her in the hallway. The kingdom of kindness, it turned out, had a moat and a drawbridge, and the queen wanted to remain undisturbed. The shiny surface had begun to crack, revealing something ugly underneath.
Stephen Paddock, and do not ask me for sources, but Stephen Paddock.
Who's that?
He was the guy that shot up the Vegas concert. That was a very tragic thing. Listen to this. The only guy that saw Stephen Paddock alive, his name is Jesus Campos. He was a guard at Mandalay Bay. He got interviewed nowhere else. You know where he got interviewed in the beginning?
Ellen. Really?
Weird. And then they went on, if you could find that clip, they went on with a weird like diagram of how it happened, and Ellen's like showing the people how it happened. Not like an emotional, like, how are you feeling? How are you holding up? It was a weird diagram of like, and then he went to the left and to the right. It was very strange.
As the official allegations surfaced, personal stories began pouring in, each one adding another layer to the emerging portrait of a deeply unpleasant person. Joe Rogan, never one to hold back, shared a story from his writer friend who had worked on the show, who bluntly described Ellen as a monster. Suddenly, the public image of the quirky dancing host was being replaced by a much darker character. Greg Gutfeld, with his signature brutal sarcasm, compared the backstage environment to a psychological torture chamber, joking that she was running Abu Ghraib in the back of her show. The contrast was jarring and impossible to ignore. On camera, she was dancing with Kristen Bell. Off camera, people who worked for her described a living nightmare. The disconnect wasn't just a flaw, it was a gaping chasm, and what happened next would expose it in the most public way possible.
And Ellen got canceled for real a few years ago from just being a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like a single comment she said or something she did, just lots of people saying that working for her was a living nightmare and that she's a jerk. And I think that's probably why she wants to leave, because she hasn't really been able to make a comeback.
Yeah.
I mean, remember how everybody loved Ellen? They're like, Ellen, we love you, Ellen's here, yay. And then that all went away. So she probably has been thinking of a reason to leave, and now she thinks that this is the reason to try to make it look like some sort of, look how afraid I am, I feel how you feel because I'm, you know, of Trump.
Yeah, it was just the excuse. She is, Emily, I watched her comedy special. It was like a huge pity party. It was about how she was lamenting how her reputation has suffered. She's essentially as popular as a pit bull with monkeypox.
A scandal this big always hits the bottom line. As the allegations swirled, Ellen's ratings went into a free fall, plummeting by over 43%. The once loyal audience was tuning out, no longer buying the products she was selling. Soon after the inevitable was announced, the 19th season of her show would be its last. In a carefully managed interview, Ellen claimed the decision had nothing to do with the controversy. The real reason, she said, was that the show was just not a challenge anymore. The audacity of the statement was stunning. It was a line so transparently false that commentators had a field day. It was like, as one put it, The Titanic didn't hit an iceberg. It chose to sink. She wasn't quitting because she was bored. She was escaping a 5-alarm fire she had started herself. But as her kingdom crumbled, a new and even more damaging narrative began to form, one that couldn't be spun by even the best publicist.
A million times for like, they're gonna find the thing if you don't go away. You gotta have a good run, and then when you have a good run, you step back and you go, okay, I'm still gonna do my thing, but like, I'm not. I mean, there's only a few jobs in entertainment, right?
Right.
So I think a lot of the cancel culture shit is probably these motherfuckers want those jobs.
Ooh.
They're like, how long is this bitch gonna be dancing? I can dance with Hillary Clinton. I could do the Charleston with Henry Kissinger, whatever the fuck she does out there.
The Charleston, is that what it is?
She goes out there, do the Charleston. She's got war criminals. Her and Bush are jumping around. I mean,
That's right. She was buddies with Bush. That
yeah,
was like
she's
one of the
a
first
CIA agent.
The ultimate betrayal was yet to come. The producers, the very architects of her on-screen empire, reportedly turned on her. Reports began to circulate of a massive $100 million legal battle brewing. These weren't just disgruntled interns. These were the senior-level people who had helped craft the show's identity. They were the ones who clapped on cue, who smiled through the alleged backstage tantrums, and who were now demanding financial compensation for the hostile environment they claimed to have endured. This was the final nail in the coffin of her reputation. As the legal threats mounted, the celebrity friends who once flocked to her show suddenly went silent. The invites stopped. The public praise vanished. They were ghosting her harder than a bad Hinge date. The woman who was once the center of the Hollywood universe was now an untouchable, and the financial bombshell was the point of no return.
Have the choice. They must stay in the hell of Trump. We're out of here. By the way, Walter.
I think we could let the illegal aliens stay if we get enough of Hollywood to self-deport.
Yes. I will take 1,000.
You know, exactly.
I'll take 1,000 Venezuelan migrants for one share.
Exactly. If you can get one Hollywood star to leave, you get to stay. Otherwise, it's out.
You know what, though? It's funny. I just want to bring this up to you. You can comment or not.
Yeah.
So she left a celebrity base to go to London, and she's already ensconced with other celebrities. So she's basically still in the same bubble.
She's not going back to London. She's going to Oxfordshire. And as the only person on this set who attended Oxford University.
No, way to drop that
It's
in.
true. I can tell you that there is nothing high British Oxford society loves more than a failed and despised American talk show host.
With the benefit of hindsight, the red flags were there all along, hiding in plain sight. Awkward interviews began to resurface, like one where she relentlessly pressured Dakota Fanning about not being invited to her birthday party, only for Dakota to coolly reply, "You were invited." There was the bizarrely cold interview with Jesus Campos, the security guard and survivor of the Las Vegas mass shooting. Instead of focusing on his trauma, Ellen treated it like a forensic investigation, using a diagram to map out the events with a strange, emotional detachment. Then there was her infamous friendship with former President George W. Bush. When she was criticized by her progressive fan base, she doubled down, scolding her audience for not being as open-minded as she was. It revealed a stunning disconnect from the very people who made her famous. Rogan even joked she must be a CIA agent for her cozy relationship with war criminals. These weren't isolated incidents. They were clues to a personality that was perhaps never what it seemed. As Ellen's empire teetered, an unlikely duo emerged as the Greek chorus for her downfall, Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld. From opposite ends of the media landscape, they found common ground in their gleeful, ruthless roasting of the fallen queen. They weren't just reporting on the scandal, they were narrating it with a level of cynical humor that was both brutal and cathartic. They labeled her brand a kindness Ponzi scheme, where early investors got smiles, but later contributors were left with nothing. Gutfeld described the show as the daytime TV Hunger Games, a glitter-covered boot camp where employees sobbed silently in the green room. Rogan took it even further, comparing the set to a North Korean variety hour. All forced smiles, choreographed enthusiasm, and a deep, unspoken fear of being dragged off camera for displeasing the leader. Together, they articulated the public's growing suspicion that the entire Ellen project was a masterclass in sociopathic branding. In the end, the collapse was total. Ellen DeGeneres went from a globally adored icon to a walking cautionary tale about the poison of hypocrisy. Her legacy is no longer about dancing or generosity. It's about the shocking revelation of what can fester behind a billion-dollar smile. She may have fled to the UK or retreated to her mansion, but the damage is permanent. The brand is broken, the trust is gone, and the reputation is in ashes. The dance is finally over, the music has stopped, and the audience has gone home. But the question that lingers in the silence is the one that truly matters. Was the kindness ever real, or was it simply the greatest, most convincing, and most lucrative role she ever played?
People that are like that all the time, she doesn't seem nice. It's very forced. And whatever, you're allowed to be a bitch, right? You're allowed to be a bitch. You're allowed to be nasty to people. You're accomplished. You're a comedian. You did the whole thing. What you're not allowed to do is have a Guantanamo Bay situation in the backstage of your show where everybody's walking around afraid for their life, and it's like Abu Ghraib where they're hooked up to wires and they
Dogs
have like
around them.
Yeah, she's got dogs and hoods. If an intern's late, they have a hood on. I don't support that.
But she's putting this on Trump. Do you think that she's going to be just everybody's going to love her in England?
Especially the jihadis who love the lesbians so much. They're going to love her there. I think she's fleeing for way more than her anger over Trump.
If Trump is truly responsible for Ellen's exodus, shouldn't that go down as his greatest achievement in the last 8? I mean, he should get the Nobel Prize.
He's literally going to have a who's who of left. I mean, the entire 80s music catalog is gone. You got Springsteen, Cher, Madonna. I just don't know why they keep showing pictures of Aaron Rodgers with blonde hair.
Meanwhile, Greg